Karen's sisters demanded my window seat. What I did next left the entire plane in shock. Ever had someone demand your airplane seat mid-boarding like they were entitled to it, just because they asked louder than everyone else? Because I sure did, and let me tell you, it turned into a showdown at 30,000 feet that nobody on that plane will ever forget. Name's Marcus Thorne. I'm a combat medic recently honorably discharged, now doing disaster relief with FEMA. I just wrapped up a brutal 3-week wildfire deployment in Arizona, was running on 3 hours of sleep, and had a flight home to Tennessee booked seat 22, a window. My quiet zone. My sanctuary. My don't talk to me until landing refuge. Except the moment I got to my row, I found it occupied. 2 women. Matching pink neck pillows. Matching floral muumuus. And matching scowls that could curdle milk. One sat in 22B. The other? Planted squarely in my 22, cheeks spilling over the armrests, blocking the view I'd counted down all week for. I checked my ticket, double-checked the seat numbers, then cleared my throat and said, as politely as a man running on fumes could, "Excuse me, I think you're in my seat." The larger one, the one with a rhinestone queen pin on her chest, didn't even look up. "This one's taken," she muttered. I showed her my boarding pass. "I don't care what that says," she snapped, finally glaring at me with a face that looked like it hadn't smiled since 2007. "We're sisters, and we're flying together. You can take the middle seat, or ask someone else to swap." "I paid for a window seat," I said calmly, "and it's assigned. I really need it." "Young man," the other one huffed, gripping her ginger ale like a weapon, "we've had a very stressful week. My ankles are swollen. My sister gets motion sick if she can't lean left, and frankly, your attitude is making it worse." That's when it clicked. They weren't asking. They were expecting me to cave. I looked around. The aisle was crowded. The flight attendant was 4 rows up, and people were already watching. One guy raised his eyebrows at me from across the aisle like he was watching a live episode of HOA Karen's Unleashed. I could have done what most would, sigh, accept the aisle seat, wait for it to be over. But I was too tired, too sore, too done. So I leaned in not aggressively, just enough to match her energy, and said, "Ma'am, I've just finished pulling body parts out of a burned trailer. I haven't slept in 30 hours. And that seat? It's mine." She scoffed. "You don't look military." I pulled out my government ID. Silence. And then the Queen Karen muttered something under her breath that pushed it too far. They'll let anyone wear a uniform these days. I didn't yell. I didn't snap. I just stood tall, held up my phone, and hit record. "Ma'am," I said loud enough for the row to hear, "you're refusing to vacate my assigned seat, mocking my service, and interfering with the boarding process. That's a federal violation." Her eyes widened just enough to show she'd heard that last part. "You wouldn't dare," she hissed. And that's when the flight attendant arrived. "What seems to be the issue here?" I handed over my boarding pass and ID. Before I could explain, Karen 2 cut in. "He's harassing us. He's trying to force me out. I'm disabled." "She's not," said a voice from behind. A teenager with headphones chimed in. I saw them rush to the gate, cut in the TSA pre-check line, and brag about how they always hack seat assignments. The flight attendant turned stern. "Ladies, unless you have documentation for pre-assigned seating or a medical need filed in advance, I'm going to have to ask you to move." They wouldn't. Karen 1 folded her arms like a toddler. "Let him sit on the floor then. I have a heart condition." Karen 2. "I'll faint if I sit in the middle." Then came the first twist. The man behind me stood up. Big guy. Quiet. Suit jacket. "I'm a doctor," he said. "You don't have a heart condition. You just had 2 slices of cheesecake and a glass of white wine in the lounge. I was behind you." You could hear the row 3 aisle's back gasp. Karen 1 blushed the color of canned tomato soup. The flight attendant didn't wait. She clicked the call button for the captain. That's when the second twist dropped. Turns out, the Karens had done this before. The airline pulled up their profile. They'd been flagged 3 times for seat disputes, once for allegedly faking a medical emergency when denied an upgrade. They were on behavioral watch. And now, they were done. The captain himself came out. "This flight's not leaving until you move," he said bluntly. "Or you can deplane and fly standby tomorrow." The Karens threw a fit, shouted, swore, claimed ageism, sexism, flight discrimination. Queen Karen actually tried sitting back down in my seat like she owned the plane. Wrong move. 2 security personnel boarded less than 3 minutes later and calmly escorted them off. No handcuffs, just firm arms and stunned faces. One clutched her neck pillow like it was a lifeline. The other cried something about Yelp reviews and lawsuits. They were gone. I took my seat. The sun was setting just outside the window. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and the entire plane, I kid you not, applauded. The clapping died down after a few seconds, but the mood on that flight, it shifted. The air felt lighter. People were smiling at each other. The teenage kid behind me gave me a fist bump and whispered, "Dude, that was epic." The flight attendant, the same one who'd stayed calm through the whole scene, came back 20 minutes into the flight with a quiet grin. "Captain said your first drink is on us. Also, we moved your check bag to priority delivery." I thanked her, not for the perks, but for the dignity, the acknowledgement. Sometimes, it's not about winning, it's about not letting someone steamroll you because they think they can. The rest of the flight was peaceful. I watched the Rockies from my window, caught up on some sleep. When we landed, I thought it would all be over, but the world had other plans. See, I'd forgotten I had left my phone recording in my lap during the confrontation. The team behind me tapped my shoulder at baggage claim. "You don't mind if I post that clip, do you?" I caught the part where they screamed about the cheesecake and then got escorted off. I shrugged. Sure, why not? 2 days later, it had 2 million views. The headline on TikTok? Karens try to steal vet's seat, get yeeted by captain. I started getting texts from people I hadn't spoken to in years. My FEMA supervisor sent me a laughing emoji and said, "So I guess we're going to need media training for you now." My mom called crying she'd seen it on Facebook before I even knew it had blown up. But the best part? Veterans from all over the country started sharing their own stories in the comments. Happened to me once, but I gave up the seat. Next time I'm pulling the Marcus Thorne method. Window seats are earned, not demanded. Even the airline chimed in. They released a statement thanking passengers for helping de-escalate an incident with civility and respect. And though they didn't name me, they quietly updated their internal policy on behavioral flags. As for the Karen sisters, turns out they had a side hustle as travel influencers for plus-sized women. But after the video, they lost every brand deal they had. A few even posted public statements cutting ties, citing behavior inconsistent with our values. They tried going private, then rebranded their page. But the internet, it doesn't forget. 1 week later, a stitched video comparing them to toddlers fighting over a Happy Meal hit 5 million views. And me? I went back to work, quiet, focused, and with a renewed sense that sometimes it's okay to stand your ground even at 30,000 feet. I still sit by the window every flight, and I always smile when the person in the middle asks, "This your seat?" Yup, I say, every inch of it. So here's my question to you. If someone demands your space, mocks your service, and dares you to push back, should you stay quiet? True or false sometimes, the seat you paid for is the lesson someone else needs? The end.